G'day, I'm Erin.
And I'm Lachlan.
And together we are Broken Creek.
And we're with John Broughton on Retrospectves.
On KC Radio 97.7 FM.
I know the man of this town. There's none like William.
Well, let's have a bit of a chat about your background first before we talk about the new EP, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Can you tell us what each of you were doing musically before you officially became a duo? What does the pre-Broken Creek bio read like?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to kick this one off?
I'll kick it off. So I learnt from an amazing violin teacher, and she was super strict and classical. So I learnt a lot of classical violin, but at the same time, my parents were in a bush band. So I sort of would have these like folk gigs on the weekend, but then I'd have orchestra rehearsals and all sorts of things. So I ended up studying at the Melbourne Conservatorium at Melbourne Uni. Again, it was like classical violin, so concertos and things, but I was always drawn to improvisation and folk music. And so for me, it was discovering like the folk community that was out there and amazing players in bluegrass and old time and those playing the Australian repertoire too, that I found a place for what I was interested in. And it wasn't trying to fit in that very strict classical mold, but it was a folk, which isn't really a mold. I feel like folk music is like
a practice and a tradition.
And Lachlan also, he wasn't in the classical music world at all. So he really opened up my ears and opened up my eyes to other musical possibilities.
Yeah, so we had that growing up with parents in bush bands thing in common. So my dad was in a band back in the 90s called Pat Keegan and the Loaded Dog. He's not Pat Keegan. His name's Gavin.
I was going to say he's the Loaded Dog.
He's one of the Loaded Dogs.
So like that music, folk music was kind of in the ears from very young. And I think most of the music I've ever played has had like a folk tradition to it. There was a brief dalliance in metal when I was in like a 14-year-old. But I feel like there's a pretty straight line between some of the like English folk music and heavy metal that you only have to hop to Black Sabbath and then you're at Metallica from English folk music. So like I feel like there's that line there. But the earliest project we worked on together was like very much part of that like 2009 to 14 indie folk thing.
In the wake of Mumford and
Mumford and
Sons.
Sons.
Oh, yeah.
It was called Rare Child, and it was a 5-piece, which you think you need a whole band when you're like starting out. You're like, oh, everyone else has a whole band, but you don't kind of realize how logistically difficult
you quickly find
managing 5 people is, and how economically unviable that can be.
But then we sort of realized as a duo we could do a lot more in a way and travel more easily, go deeper on like the banjo and fiddle repertoire. So Broken Creek was the start of the duo project. So we were still doing Red Child gigs, but we're like, yeah, Broken Creek is for us and about our really nerdy interests.
And one of the things that we really like about the duo format is we call it conversational playing. So where in a 5-piece band, you have to kind of like everyone's got their thing, and you're being very careful not to tread on the toes of other people's parts. So as a guitarist, you're like, better not play the root note. The bass player's got the root note. But in a duo, you can be a little bit freer and like really have your ears open and be listening to the person you're playing with, and be a little bit more responsive and conversational in what you're doing. So that's something that I really love about what we're doing at the moment.
Have either of you ever pondered what paths your lives would have taken had you never met?
Oh,
Yeah.
because we met when we were 16. So we've had a lot of life together, over half of our lives together, in fact. So it's pretty wild to think that maybe I'd be a very frustrated classical musician. I don't know.
And I would probably not play gigs.
Look, his bedroom, just like spiraling in.
Yeah.
Because I love the sound making of music. Like I like, don't get me wrong, I love doing gigs and connecting with audiences and sharing things, but it's really Erin that has pushed me into doing that so that I could discover that I loved it. Whereas like just sitting down with a beautiful sounding guitar and playing the notes on it was like gives me a lot of satisfaction as well. And maybe that I would have been completely satisfied with that.
What
I
about
kicked out the
the
door.
the initial attraction to the instruments that you're both known for, the banjo and the fiddle? Can either of you recall what it was about the sound of those instruments that really lit a spark in you?
I mean, the fiddle feels like a voice to me. It feels like I get to express something with a lot of personality
Mm.
because there's so much you can express on the violin with the bow and pizzicato, and it's got a huge emotional range. You can go from like a dancing to like that really emotional sound and string swells. So I was a very dramatic child. So I think the violin really suited me because it was a violin. It was an instrument that was full of drama, and the pieces you could play were full of drama. It was really portable. I could take it around. It's a tricky to sing with at the same time is my only thing, but I've been working on that so I can fiddle and sing at the same time. But yeah, so I really, to me, it's just so much part of my personality and identity playing the fiddle. So it's whenever I hear it, I'm just like drawn to it.
Yeah, and I think the banjo probably one of the earliest things I would have heard on the banjo is the Beverly Hillbillies theme song. And there's just something about the sound of that like lit me up. I'm like, what is that cool sound? Like, and then I remember hearing like, we're back to the Beverly Hillbillies again. There's a moment in I reckon the Beverly Hillbillies film that like the remake modern one that was done in the 90s or
Oh,
2000s,
yeah.
where Bela Fleck is on a plane. And I was like, who's that guy? And then I YouTubed him and found like, his bluegrass fusion music, big country and that kind of stuff. And it's just like, whoa, that's a very cool sounding instrument. Yeah, I like it was always like when I'd hear the banjo, the ears would prick up. And I can't really articulate like why. It feels almost like, those spiders that, they don't have to learn how to weave their web. They just know how to weave the web.
Yeah.
Like the banjo is kind of like fixed in my brain. It was just waiting to be discovered or something.
Well, we've been talking about like in the 90s on ABC children's show, there was a lot of this like Australian country music. So
Yeah.
artists like Colin
Yeah,
Buchanan,
Don Spencer,
and it has like just these amazing fiddle licks by
Pixie Jenkins.
Pixie Jenkins, and like it was just always played on the ABC. So I think there was a bit of a cultural moment for fiddle and banjo. There was also like in the 90s, like Irish music was really cool, Celtic music, you had the Corrs and River Dance. So all of these things, I think there was a lot of fiddle and banjo sound just around as well.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, your website promotional blurb describes you as reimagining Australiana. What does that phrase mean to you in practical terms?
I love this question.
Yeah.
So I think Australian folk music got a reputation for being very daggy and a bit hokey. And part of that is a lot of the Australian folk songs, and we're talking about like post-colonization songs. So of course, Australia has like, thousands and thousands of years of music history. But in terms of like the sort of music that was played on banjo and fiddle and those ballads, it didn't have very long before recorded music came along and a lot of American influences came in. So you've kind of got these like treason songs that are existing. And by the time people kind of discover them or discover these tunes and the cultures of like getting together to dance and things like that, a lot of the players were very much older. And so their facility on their instrument, while it still really speaks and there's you can lean into that sound, it doesn't like light up the brain if you're the sort of person that really, loves like virtuosic playing or like, and so a lot of the examples of the Australian music out there, there wasn't many, and they were often very like scratchy recordings, or like they were very like slowly done. So
or the other thing that can happen is like revivalist practitioners can get very historically focused, and they're recreating what they're hearing in like field recordings of folkloric informants, which is kind of like one of the things that we love about American music is that they have such a rich tradition of people going out into the field to record folkloric informants
Mm.
like Doc Boggs or uh, like even who else? Olabella Reed and like these kinds of people. But then people like view that as a starting point for the sound that they're wanting to make, and they're kind of free to explore other inputs and ideas when they're approaching that traditional repertoire. So
So we kind of had two things here. We've got this like music that's not really well known, even
Yep.
by Australians. And there's, lots of reasons for that and lots of like complex feelings about looking at our history and like the truth telling and like, but yeah, it's important, I think, to look at these songs and look at this music in part of working out what does it mean to live in Australia and who we are as Australians, like we need to explore this very, very chewy, very, very complex question. But at the same time, we were influenced by these American artists who have gone back to their roots to look at this music. And so we basically were obsessed with, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And we went, what did those musicians do? Dude, they went back, okay, as Australian musicians, we should also do that and do that process, right? Of looking back and finding out what the folk repertoire is in our country, as well as, writing our own music as well. So this reimagined Australiana, like we're not American, we're not playing American repertoire, right? We want everything to be connected to Australia and like who we are as people. So we kind of say we've got three things, right? We've got reimagined bush ballads and tunes, Australian folk tunes. We've got original music we write inspired by stories of people living in Australia and the Australian landscape. So we've got songs like of small towns and tunes as well that kind of try and reflect that. So we're trying to find something expressive and original and like wrestling. And it's all very interesting, I think. It's very interesting artistic material, but it's also very personal to us. And it doesn't feel like playing dress ups. It feels very real.
Yeah.
And even a little bit scary sometimes. And I think, when you're making music, if something feels a bit scary or like it's a really big question to wrestle with, then you're on the right track in a way. Like, you're doing something that's exploring something that's got a lot in it.
When you're going to putting your own stamp on these traditional songs, are there any elements of the original song that for you are an absolute must to preserve, but at the same time wanting to put your own spin on them?
Yes, but I think I'm going to be really kind of slippery here and say the thing that has to be preserved is the essence.
Yeah, totally. Usually it's me saying the woo-woo stuff. I love that. But yeah, like every song's got the thing that makes a song really special. I often work with the lyrical content and so I'll do lots of writing. I'll do lots of imagining from the different characters' perspectives. Often the old songs are written from a very male perspective. So I'm always very interested in like who isn't in the song. They're in the song, but you're not hearing from them, right? So on our latest EP, we took a song, The Red Barn, and we did a lot of rewriting for that because it was a murder ballad. And often I find murder ballads very dark, very sad. But I asked myself the question, like, why do the women of the bush, why do they keep singing this song? Why have they passed it down? Why has it survived? And if you ask that question, why, you can drill down to that essence and go, okay, they're passing it on because they're honoring the woman. So I'm going to want to hear from her perspective. So the first verse is going to be from Maria Martin's perspective. And then it's also about the community around the story as well and their reactions. So each verse is from a different woman in the story who is affected by it. And that kind of led us into the rewriting. We also wrote a chorus. It doesn't originally have a chorus for it, but we wanted, in our modern songs, the chorus is often where the emotion lands, or you've got that central image and it lands. So for the Red Barn, it's very simple chorus. It's the red barn. I dream of the red barn, which takes on different meanings as the song goes on. And it just gives that moment for the story to land, I think. So that's an example of kind of like keeping some of it and transforming some of
Like,
it.
and another thing with the Red Barn tune, is originally Sally Sloane, who we got that tune from in the archive, sang it to a really well-known melody.
Mm.
It's like the Dives and Lazarus tune, which is if you give a
Oh, it's la da 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 da, which I knew from like church upbringing that it was like I heard the voice of Jesus say,
and it's
but
also like the
Star of the
Star of
Counting
the Counting
Down,
Down melody.
which like we
Hmm.
played at weddings and things, so it
Yeah.
had all these associations that didn't fit the murder ballad.
Yeah, and we wanted people to kind of like hear the story of the song and not be thinking about the other songs that have been set to that melody. So there was a choice to kind of get at the like narrative essence of that song, to not use the melody that Sally sang it to, but to preserve like the kind of, it's in the same musical mode that she sang it in. So it has a similar quality, but it's like a little bit abstracted away. So it's not just like, oh yeah, that's the story, this melody of Star
Yeah.
of the County Down.
I know the man of this town. There's none like William Corder. So each of the main notes I'm hitting are from that original melody,
Hmm.
um, but it's got slightly different connective tissue. So you kind of preserve those main notes, and then make it fit, the lyrics that you've put in. So it's very iterative process,
Yeah.
basically. You kind of go, what's important? Why is it important? And then you use your songwriting toolkit to work with it.
So going through the National Library archives for material, I could imagine you both like two kids in a candy store, just overwhelmed by it. Or were there any special moments of discovery that just blew you away?
And you're absolutely right. It's overwhelming to go into the
Yeah.
National Library Archive. We find like you have to go in with a question. Like if you just like, oh,
Hmm.
up some folk music on the archive,
Yeah,
you won't end up looking at anything because you're just like, there's millions and millions of things.
too much
Um,
choice.
Mm.
but yeah, probably the moment that blew me away was like literally the first recording I listened to of Sally Sloane. Erin mentioned earlier that often these like folkloric informants were recorded when they were quite old, and so their voices and bow arms for fiddling weren't as energetic as they were when they were young. But I remember putting on the first recording of Sally, and I think she was playing the tune Blackberry Blossoms. Slightly, it's not the same tune as the American Blackberry Blossoms.
Blossom,
Blackberry
singular.
Blossom. Yeah. But she had a real like energy to her bowing that I was like, oh, there's something to that. And she's also like got a kind of like quirky way of playing intervals on the fiddle. Like
Got that
um,
modal
if you're
sound.
Mm.
thinking technically, it's not in tune, but when she plays it the same every time, so you have to assume that she intends these intervals to not be quite squared off in the way that you expect them in a typical like piano scale. So there's some real like energy and some real kind of funkiness in the tuning of that tune that I was like, there's something to this person. Turns out like that was my first encounter with her. I didn't know how much of a giant she was in the Australian folk music tradition going into that. Like since then, we've been talking to people like Jason and Chloe Raworth, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Sally's like the star of."
Mm.
But to me, in that first recording, I was like, "This is a discovery. I found something."
Well, for me, it was like trying to find just women full stop that had been
Yeah.
recorded, because often they went to the pubs, so more blokey kind of places, or the shearing sheds, and
Yeah.
that was like a lot of the material. And I'm like, I know those songs. Like, what songs were the women singing? And it was this book that the song collector John Meredith had put together with Hugh Anderson, called Folk Songs of Australia and the Men and Women who sang them. And Sally was in there. So we kind of had that clue before digging in
Yeah.
the archives of like, Sally's going to be interesting. And she had so many songs and tunes, which was really appealing as well. Like, she's a fiddle player. She's a singer from a country town like me. Like, I felt, I had that kind of kinship. And she has lots of personality too. Like,
Mm.
she's a real dag.
Yeah. It was interesting as well, like getting into the John Meredith recordings. because we'd encountered like the bush band songbooks as younger people, and that, as Erin says, they're really blokey. They're like about shearers and people driving bullock trains and all of that kind of stuff. But then it's like quite striking that like John Meredith was like amongst the earliest people to record Australian folk music to tape. And he did value like the voices of women in a way that almost those secondary sources about that built the tradition of Australian folk music kind of ignored a bit.
Because I guess they were going for that, like, you try and construct these mythologies of like, what does it mean to be Australian? But when those mythologies are all about the men, it kind of skews it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so part of our reimagining Australiana is going, well, what are the stories there? Like, what's more representative? What's more, who haven't we heard from? And because Australian folk music hasn't been all that, I guess, studied, recorded, played, like it has been, but like not as well known as American or Celtic music. So there's a lot to explore there. And it'd be lovely if it wasn't, it's not just us. And if more people got interested and intrigued and started asking questions and exploring, I think it'd be very, very exciting.
If you could go back in time and have a sit-down chat with Sally Sloane, as we are right now, what would be some of the first things you'd ask her?
Probably my request would be, can we play this tune that I know you know? I just want to have a session.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear her experiences as like as a woman performer, as well. Like even her name Sally Sloane is a stage name. Like she's performing out there, and which is so not what you think of women of her generation. Like you kind of don't think of them as like, yeah, I'm going to construct this like, like she's a David Bowie, like constructing a title, a name. And so, yeah, I'd ask her about that. But I think we'd want a musical dialogue. I think we want to hang out because that's what musicians do. We just start playing music and then you have a chat afterwards. Sometimes you meet another folk musician, you don't even ask their name or like where they're from or anything. You're playing for hours together and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm Erin, like, at the end.
Yeah, so last year, 2 years ago at the National Folk Festival, I played tunes with this crew of people for like 4 hours. And only afterwards I was like, oh, hello, I'm Lachlan. And turns out the person I've been playing tunes is Amy Ryan, who we now do like some pretty substantial collaborations with, and we're her backing band. So it's those kind of dialogues that can be really excellent and inform future interesting things. So, connecting with Sally in that way would be amazing. But yeah, maybe in the great beyond.
Yeah. Well, do you sometimes feel like you're collaborating across time with people?
My sister got married a couple of years ago, and we played the song Wild Mountain Time at her wedding. First dance, and we'd written this waltz tune to go with it. And I was just struck with this like incredible sense of like how many people at how many gatherings have sung this song. And I leant over to Erin as we were playing it. I was like, do you feel the connection to eternity? And there's that sense of like oneness with like such a substantial like human practice of making music and socializing and marking milestones in that way, that you do feel like you're in like in continuity with like something really substantial.
And I always feel like the other women with me as well, especially when I sing songs about women, or especially because I've got so many more opportunities, and even being able to tell the stories in front of people or record or all these different things that I've got this amazing artistic agency in. I guess responsibility, but also a joy in being able to do that.
I saw on your site where you joked about Sally's body count. And speaking to you now, you're both very bright, bubbly, cheerful people. What draws you to those darker, larger-than-life stories?
They're the ones she sang.
Yeah, they're in the repertoire.
I mean, she's got this other one, Bung Your Eye, which we didn't, put on the EP.
Yeah. Which, like this Bung Your Eye song was like just a song about getting drunk.
I guess often when you're working with material, like humor tends to be of its time, and it's hard to to really get the joke, unless you really understand what's going on in that time. Whereas maybe some of the dark songs last longer because that is something that doesn't date as much. Like it's something that we can all understand, like grief, and they tend to be the storytelling songs a bit more. But yeah, so often we do have funny songs as well in our
Mm.
set, but they tend to be ones that I've written. So we've got this version of the old Bark Hut, which is an old Australian ballad, but we've made it about share houses and the Australian housing crisis, but in a
Oh,
funny
okay.
way. Sorry, our cat is climbing the door at the moment. The fly screen on the doors.
Oh, wow. Cats will do that.
Yeah. Fox just gone to get her. I
No
think we
worries.
can meet one now. Come and look.
Take your time. We're not live. It's pre-recorded. One song that contributes to that body count is Molly Bourne. I spoke to Ruth Hazelton recently, and she's recorded the same song on her latest album. What was it about that story that drew you? And can you relate that story to our listeners?
Absolutely. So Molly Bourne is one of those songs that and one of those stories that every culture kind of has a version of. So you
Mm.
have a young man, and he's being a bit reckless. He's not thinking through his actions. He's drawn towards the gun, and he's shooting at dusk, so he can't really see all that well. And he thinks he sees a swan, and so he's like, "Oh, I'm going to shoot that swan." But it turns out it's his true love that he's about to marry. And it had been raining, she's crouching down, she has the apron around her, she looks like a swan. And so it's a tragic tale of this decision, this like split second decision, that he then regrets for the rest of his life, and he sings a song about the regrets. Look, she can't eat. Sorry.
That's all right.
Cat's about to go to the vet. She can't eat, so she's just meowing. We just have to put up with it.
Yeah, okay.
So Molly Bourne. So yeah, so it's that, to me, it's this tale of, and again, I asked, like, why do the women keep singing this song? Like, they would have sung it to their sons as a cautionary tale, as a warning. And yeah, it's got a lot of poignancy to it. And it's just so moving. And the melody is one of those melodies you just never forget. Like, it's a very simple melody, and the simple melodies you can kind of really put your own spin on. So I love Ruth's version, and it's so different to
It is, yeah.
as well. And with Ruth and I actually were like talking about it, like we're emailing as we're both in the process of recording our own versions of it. And it's even like there's so many versions of it. So like, which lyrics do you select? And for me, I really wanted to bring out like the choose love over violence, and his own regret in it. But some of the versions get very mystical, where like she becomes like a mound of snow and all these different things. So yeah, it's a beautiful song, even though it's so sad.
So what would be the first thing you look for in a traditional song to find that connection that makes it a song that you can give the Broken Creek treatment to?
What do we look for?
Yeah.
I look for an image.
Mm.
Like the red barn, got the red barn, right? Like this
Okay, yeah.
basic songwriting stuff. Like you have an image that can be interpreted lots of different ways. So the red barn becomes like an exciting getaway place, but then it also becomes something haunting. So it sort of changes throughout the song. Molly Bond, there's so much imagery in that of like the swan, and we set it in Australia, so we changed the tree to like a river red gum tree, which are close to our house. Yeah, you look for what? I don't know, you kind of get this it's like someone trying to find water, a water diviner.
Yeah.
And you sort of get this like spidey sense of it connects to you, and you're like, I think I can sing this song. Like there are great songs, but they're not for me to sing, like that I can't connect in that way. I always want to embody it a little bit. Like I really want to connect. Like if I don't want to be singing something that I feel distance from or disagree with or anything like that. So often like the rewriting process is about finding what in there is I don't know, it feels like a hunt for treasure or something. Like what's the gem in there? What's the melody that can't leave you alone?
I think like
Yeah.
like the songs that have some kind of subtext as well draw us in. Like there's a lot of ballads that are kind of an interesting story. They just kind of potter along, and at the end, the story has happened, but maybe it's like we're not seeing any like broader thing that can be extrapolated from the story. There's a lot of like racehorse stories in Australian folk music where the
Mhm.
song goes, a horse steered a race, it won the race. Like that, and that's kind of the extent of it. And they might have a like nice melody and kind of some interesting images to them, but it's harder to kind of imagine the point to singing it.
What's is very important. Like Ben Hall. So we do Sally's most famous song is Ben Hall, and she actually the midwife at her birth was Ben Hall's sister-in-law. So there was a real connection there in the community she lived in. And Ben Hall is so relevant. Like these bushranger songs, like they were known as treason songs, and there were people protesting the system. They were saying, "We don't like how the police are acting in this community. We don't like how these rules and like they are basically making poor people poorer, rich people richer." And these are all things that we are still protesting and discussing, as Australian society today. Like, what is the role of police? How can we make sure this is a fair society? And so these bushranger songs, like they're so anti-establishment and like protest songs. Sometimes they get mistaken for glorifying colonialism, but it's the opposite. They are saying this isn't right. And these figures become like Robin Hood figures of like, we are searching for a different way of being. And like, look, they've broken the law and they've got these very like dramatic stories. But it's all that the Ballad of Ben Hall in particular, it's like you really go into like why and how he's pushed and
Yeah.
and to me, again, like the song is sung by Sally. It's sung by people who knew the family from the community. And so the question was, like, why do they keep singing this? Why has this moved them so much? And it's so throughout the song, like you can really get into the headspace and understand. So we really took on that song because we thought, yeah, this isn't just like rah rah, like this is really saying something.
What about bringing these songs to a modern day contemporary audience? Because I guarantee, I would imagine when you go to play festival, and that you'd be a large part of the audience would be more fans of contemporary folk, contemporary singer songwriters. But what challenges do you find there?
Getting them through the door.
Yeah.
Just getting people along to live music gigs, I think, because once they're there, the music's so great. Like they
Yeah.
get drawn in, and it's all about the storytelling as well. Like we have such an amazing Australian tradition of yarning and storytelling. Like you watch Jason Rowath, like just bring people into like a Henry Lawson poem or yeah, just an anecdote, right? So like you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna be moved. That's not the problem, right? The problem is, I think, the perception of, I don't know, like why don't people come to gigs? Everyone's asking this question, I think, across the music industry, in contemporary and in folk music. And we know we feel good when we go there. We know it's worth the hassle. And whether it's like we just need to sort of microdose people so they like get a bit, just like get that interest of like, oh, I know this is going to be good. And it's not a scary thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Pretty well. The thing that I think you do really need to invite people into, even once they're through the door, is they're like traditional tunes, not like the songs. I think speak for themselves, but the tune playing, it's like we really love it because we're nerdy musicians, but you really have to kind of like slot the instrumentals into key moments where they're like kind of punctuating a point. So we often will do stuff like take a tune that, Sally might have played it, but not as part of a piece, and we kind of append it to the song to kind of give breathing space for people to like hear the like emotional core of the song land while there's still something interesting musical happening. And that indulges us in like, oh, we did the like instrumental tune that someone might not have played at a gig for 60 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you do the work of contextualizing, yeah, once everyone's there. Like that is our artistry as musicians. Is like we bring people on the journey, the emotional journey, and like understanding the background of songs and giving access points of coming in. And yeah, the question is, how do we do that to hook people in enough that they'll come to the gig and have this really amazing experience? So how can we do that online through like little short videos or our YouTube channel? Like, yeah, really asking the question of how to spread the music. Like, where's the music making, music practices happening today? Because they're so good for us as humans.
Has stepping inside some of that traditional material had a distinct influence on your own songwriting?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, everyone kind of has the thing they love to write in, right? The idioms they love to write in and the like melodic contours. And I love leaping around. I love a big range. I'm not really a stepwise singer. And yeah, Paul Kelly, he sings like quite close in stepwise, but I love leaping around.
Yeah.
And that's something I definitely share with the ballad singers,
And
I think.
Erin also likes writing monstrously long ballads.
There you
I always
are.
write way too many verses. I have to edit it down and be like, oh, this is a 7-minute song. Oh no. You know.
We recorded a duet with Archer the other day, and we hadn't kind of done a full run of the song, like
Timed it. We haven't
we hadn't
timed
it. And like we hit record, they did their first take, and I was like, that song is 7 minutes long. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel like a 7-minute song, but Erin just likes to put all the narrative details in the thing.
So yeah, I guess I'm not sure if I've been influenced or whether I just always kind of liked those sorts of songs anyway. It really suited me.
I think it's an impulse towards telling the complete story. I think so many like 3.5-minute songs are not like, they're not a narrative per se. They're like a vibe that it happens. Whereas I think you often want to like do justice to a thing, like a person or an event, and then that's where the like expansion into like more time comes from.
Yeah, I always wrote short stories as well. So I think I see a song as a short story.
Mm-hmm.
Really short story.
I love the way you went about the whole creative process of your last album, setting up in your grandmother's old farmhouse and going through the whole process. Is that where you are now?
Yeah, this is
That's it. Okay.
see the lovely shades of green.
I imagine for those reasons alone, that album's always going to hold a special place for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. We moved away from Melbourne. So our first recording we did during COVID, locked down in a tiny apartment to set up all the mics and then have to pack them all back down. And I feel like that first album is a bit dark. And
Yeah.
it's like you can feel the claustrophobia of the city. And then we did our first ever tour and we didn't want to stop kind of thing. We didn't want to go back to our old lives. So we we thought, well, Grandy's house, it's just sitting here empty, right? It's been sitting here empty for years. We could set up a studio in there. We could make music. And we tried it out for a year. And we found moving out here, like it's a small town, it's 100 people, like it's my dad's farm. We've actually made more music than ever, which really kind of shocked me in a way, not just because there's no noise complaints, but the folk music world is everywhere. Like you don't have to be in a city to be part of it. And so, we're freed up to actually go and gig more and tour more and make more music and collaborate with people. Like it's been really freeing having this, living here and having the support of our small town as well. It's been really great.
So it's pretty fair to say that album wouldn't have existed in the form that it did if it had been recorded the conventional way?
No, like there's stuff on that album, like at one point I was like, this track needs percussion. And I didn't want to like put a drum kit on it or anything because that's not quite the vibe we were going for. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I went and broke a branch off a gum tree and brought it back inside and like used the leaves as a kind of shape.
That's on Moreton Bay
So it's like having just like a very different space to record in, and also like not being on like a studio schedule where you're like, we have to get 3 tracks done today or we're over budget. Meant that there's a lot more kind of play and experimentation in that kind of way on that album than there otherwise would have been.
Now, focusing on these found treasures that you've been doing with this EP. Does that mean there's an accumulation of new songs in store of your own that we haven't heard yet?
Yes, there sure is. We've about half written our next album. We've differentiated. So we've got the Folk from the Archive EP project. Love to explore like different practitioners, different locations, like different themes around that. So, we have Folk from the Archive, Sally Sloane is the one we've just released, but we can imagine like lots of different ways we could go there.
Yeah.
And then we have what we call the blockbuster albums, which is a mix of original songs and tunes, and as well as some rewritten, like the old Share House song might end up on there. So yeah, we've about half written a new one, and it's really fun having these different musical practices that kind of can inform each other. So you sort of go, all right, we're preparing for Dorigo Festival, we're going to learn a whole heap of tunes for the session, right? You do that for a bit, and then you're like, all right, we're back home, that's done. I'm now reading more, and so I'm getting ideas of what kind of songs I want to write, like original songs. So you sort of go through these different artistic phases, and it's never boring.
You're both from country towns. Have you noticed the difference between how country folk respond to your music than to city folk?
They're really good at coming to gigs.
Yeah.
Like we did a tour, and we've done capital cities as well as small towns, regional towns, and I think people are perhaps used to doing things together as a community a lot more in a small town. So they're used to like volunteering like together, running like the footy club or running various things. And so people who like to do things, which includes going to gigs. So they're not necessarily like hardcore music fans, and that's the only people you get. It's like, it's just seen as, I think, as a gathering, like we're going to be hanging out. It's going to be a good time. I know I like doing that. So we get, really, really great audiences in country towns. And often, I'll just tell more sheep jokes and people will laugh more. Because my dad's a sheep farmer, so we've got quite a few sheep songs in there. But in the city, often we will talk more about like, decolonization of the ballads. And like you can go through a bit more, like it's people who are engaged in folk music and these conversations. And so you can be kind of talk, I don't know, I think my anecdotes change a little bit from country to city, and we can go more into sort of our processes a little bit in the city, because I think that seems to get a response.
Yeah.
But yeah, but at the same time, there are jokes that just everyone laughs at too. So
Yeah. And just one more before I let you go. What do you, a chance to talk up the other person in the partnership here? What do each of you think the other one brings to the partnership, to the duo, that you couldn't do alone?
Erin's like the storyteller. There's all this cool stuff out there that, like we'd learn all these instrumental tunes and dig up these ballads and index them in spreadsheets. But Erin kind of, as she's kind of alluded to, like finds ways into embodying the songs and making them scrutable to audiences and expressing the kind of truth of it. So it doesn't, to me, just doesn't just feel like we're doing a historicist project where we're recreating a historical artifact in live performance. It becomes like a real thing. So I think that's cool.
Thank you. I mean, Locke is so brilliant. Like he will know, 5, 6, 10 different options for like substituting chords, for instance, and harmonizing something, and just have this whole amazing toolkit to be able to go, we could do this, we could do this. And so he can really explode the musical possibilities for setting the melody. So often I'll bring a melody to him, and Locke will just have all these ideas of arranging, and his rhythm's incredible. So I get to like lock into this rhythm, this groove that Lachlan sets, which is so like I would definitely struggle doing by myself. Being like, I love to dwell in the melody kind of person. And yeah, Lachlan's the process, and just having like the huge spreadsheets, setting up the recording. He really, really nerding out on the technical details and making sure the technical can express what we want to do musically. So it is a real, like, I think, a partnership of we both have different strengths
Yeah.
that come together in this alchemy of Broken Creek.
It does sound like a match made in heaven. Erin Lockie, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute joy catching up with you, and loving the new EP and your back catalogue as well, of course. And of course, we've got a gig for you down here. We need to sort that out as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So keen. Amazing. Oh,
Great.
can't wait. That sounds incredible.
Okay, we'll stay in touch, and we'll see you on June the 14th.
See you then. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. All the best.
See ya.
Bye.